Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting 3ds Max 2014 tutorial. This is Tom Hoffman and I'm going to walk you through, no pun intended, an actual architectural walkthrough project here. And it's one of my most favorite projects, I guess you could say, because if you're going to get a career in 3D animation or any type of 3D modeling, chances are there's going to be some kind of architecture involved, either it be a scene in a game, or possibly just working freelance for an architect creating visualizations of buildings that are yet to come. So one of the benefits of working with the architectural is if you're very good with scale and units and you like to draw things exactly as they are, then this is definitely your type of project. Unlike the graffiti project, which was very abstract, and if you kind of messed up, it kind of still looked good. Here, the things that we're going to build have to be built identical. Windows have to be the right size or they're going to look wrong. Couches have to be the right size. The ceiling has to be the right height. And that's because obviously we're looking at something from a real life point of view here. So we're going to begin by breaking this down. Again, you're going to look at a lot of things I've already showed you in previous tutorials, yet I'm going to go ahead and show you a more practical approach as well as some new techniques here. And again, the starting point for an architectural walkthrough begins several different ways. Best case scenario is, as an architect, hands you a blueprint with all the scales set up on it, maybe even gives you a CAD drawing that you could import into Max. My project here is going to focus more on just the practical coming up and making up something, but we are going to follow a certain scale. And to do that, we're going to begin by going up and actually doing customize unit setup, and we're going to set our scale to US standard, which is what I'm going to use as feet and inches, and I'm going to hit OK. So now what happens when I create something over here in the let's say we'll go and do a rectangle in the front. Let's go in the top view, and I create this rectangle. It's going to represent a floor. You're going to see that it's actually measured in feet and inches, and that's important because as we build the scale model, we want the furniture to look right, but then later down the road we're going to use photometric lighting, which actually relies on live scale, real scale models in order to work right. So ultimately, not following this first step could be critical to the professionalism of your entire model. So we can start off and just going to have some fun here. I am going to create a rectangle that's going to represent the maximum size of my room. Now I don't want to do just a plain rectangle room. That's kind of boring. So I'm going to make it a little bit more exciting. But to give me a guide on which direction or where I'm working here, I'm going to go in and say I want my room to be 15 foot by 12 foot. So that's just giving me this rough idea that I'm scaled appropriately, and I'll zoom back out here. Now the next thing I'm going to do is take my line tool, and I'm going to maximize the top viewport here. And I'm actually going to go and, it doesn't have to be right on this rectangle, but I'm going to go ahead and click, and I'm going to hold my shift key, and I'm creating these straight lines. And I'm going to come down here, and I'm not dragging, I'm just clicking with my shift key down. That's constraining, and I'm going to go ahead and put like a little alcove in here just to kind of make it a little bit more exciting. Maybe this will be a doorway, and then I'm going to go ahead and close this spline, and you'll see that this represents the exterior wall of my room. At this point I can really delete this guide. This was just to kind of give me an idea where I'm going with my project. And again, if you had a blueprint, you could actually go and import that in as a picture and then kind of trace that picture out and scale it. But we're just kind of having a little bit of fun here right now, building an exterior wall. And I do see I'm kind of slightly off. I'm going to go ahead and just pull that over. Now we could have also put snap to grid on and could have actually snapped these in there, but I think I'm going to be happy with that. Now this represents, if I extruded this right now, this is going to be a solid room. We can't go inside a solid room. So what we actually have to do is create another set of lines which is going to represent the interior of the room. And I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to go in, I'm going to use the spline tool with my shift key, and I'm not dragging, I'm just clicking. And I'm doing like a little offset here. that's going to represent the interior walls. And if they're off a little bit, that's okay. We're going to go ahead and use the edit spline command to kind of eyeball that up. Let's see. And again, if somebody gave you exact dimensions, you might want to go and draw some lines and use some tools to kind of lay out the actual size of the room first. And you know, the exterior and interior walls, there's typically about a 6-inch gap there. So we could go down and test it out and say, all right, let's create a little box here as a guide. And I'm going to just make this box 6 inches by 6 inches by 6 inches. And that guide is going to let me know if my walls are offset enough, and they're definitely not. I need to actually bring those walls out quite a bit here. So I'm just going into modify, and I'm highlighting 2 sets of line segments and bringing them out. And now that I have one established, I can kind of eyeball up the other ones to get them pretty close. If you want to be incredibly accurate, you can move that reference box out and kind of give yourself a, you know, move it around and give yourself an exact measurement. But again, the exterior and interior wall dimensions are, they're not critical. The only thing you're going to notice is when you look out the window, the depth that you have in between the windows. So this would represent my room. Now again, if I extrude the inside and outside walls, these are 2 separate objects. So what I have to do is select the outside walls, and I'm going to go in and actually choose the attach feature, which is going to allow me to select the inside walls. Now don't select them both and then try to attach. You have to select one, choose attach, and select the other. You're adding one line to the other. Now if you click off, you'll notice they're both the same wireframe color. And if you click on now, you can actually call this walls. Now we're still working with a shape here. And this is the next part I want to do, is we want to extrude. So I'm going to go out to my modify panel, and I'm going to find my extrude command. And what extrude is going to do, it's going to give me a thickness of the walls in between the 2 splines. Now, if you look over to the right, we're still in architectural units, so our amount that we're going to go is going to be approximately 9 feet. We can say approximately 9 feet. You could actually go in and key in 96 inches, and that's going to give you 8 feet, which is, you know, 8 or 9 feet is about, I'm going to say 8 for this tutorial. Now you'll notice this is a very small room. And if your client has given you these dimensions, you may say, you know what, this is a very small room. I can't do much with it. That's okay. We can still go and have some fun. Back in the original line, we can go ahead and make some more room. I'm going to go ahead and select these vertices, and I'm going to stretch this part of the room out, and I'll stretch this part of the room out, and maybe I'll even take this wall over here some. So for this project, we're just having fun with architecture. Again, if your client gives you a specific size, you have to adhere to that size, otherwise your model's not going to be accurate enough. But for here, we're just kind of having fun making our first architectural project. And I go back to extrude, and you'll notice that it's now a little bigger here. A little bit more spacey. And depending on what kind of room, is it a bedroom, is it a living room, you can go in and keep, you know, playing around and adjusting. Just remember, grab all the vertices. Now see what I'm doing there is I'm not grabbing that wall, so I'm getting this angle. And you know what, I'm going to roll with that. I'm going to go ahead and leave that in there because that's kind of a neat little bend there. And there we go. Now you may ask, okay, where's my windows, where's my doors? Well, we're going to get to that, and again, there's different methods to do this. The method I'm going to do is going to represent using the compound object Boolean method that we learned in a previous lesson. For instance, maybe your client says, I want 2 windows that are going to be 36 wide by 48 high. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag a box roughly that size. My length is going to be 48 inches, and my width is going to be 36 inches. Don't worry too much about the depth, other than the fact that the depth should exceed the 6 inches of the wall thickness here. So what I'm doing is I'm putting this box that's protruding through the wall. It's coming through both sides. And I'm also going to go ahead and figure out, maybe, the window's going to be a little higher up here. I could actually measure this. But for this tutorial, we're not going to get into that just yet. We're just having some fun here. And I'll do an array. Let's say we're going to do 2 copies. Don't do instances, do copies. And that's going to evenly space these windows. Now, yes, they don't look like windows, but what we're going to do is we're going to punch these out. We're going to remove these from the walls. While we're at it, we may decide, okay, we need another window over here. We can go ahead and take that window shape, slide it over here, and I'm going to go ahead and turn my angle snap on and rotate that 90 degrees. Now, I've said in a lot of my videos, I really want you to keep your viewports clean, and my clean means that if you look at all of my orthographic views, my top, my left, my front, that they are straight on. Do not use your orbit tool in your orthographic views, because what's going to happen, and a lot of people do this, is you bump this. And I see people modeling like this, and that defeats the entire purpose of even using viewports. Because as you're creating objects, you can't tell if they're actually where they need to be. Remember, do a viewport check every so often. Look up here and make sure it doesn't say orthographic. We want a top, a left, and a front view. And when we look in those views, we want our wire mesh to be nice and clean. We don't want to see like crookedness, because that is ultimately going to create problems for us when we're placing furniture in our rooms, and we don't want crooked windows and we don't want crooked furniture. It's very important. But using the viewports is really important in this project specifically, because we have to view the house in several directions. Now I'm looking at my top view and I'm sliding my window down, but I'm actually, as I slide it in the top view, I'm looking in the perspective view to kind of see where I'm going with this. And I'm going to do 2 nice big windows there. And then I'm going to put a door in here, because we need some way to get into the room. And all that we're going to do is we're going to take a window, and I'm going to go ahead, in fact, I'll take this window up here, because I know this is 36. I'm going to shift click and make a copy that's going to protrude out into this room here. And a door is typically, like, I'm going to say probably 76 inches high, maybe a little bit more. Let's do this. Let's go 80 inches high. Oops, 80 inches high, which is what your standard door is at Lowe's. And your ceiling should be about 96 inches. So there we go. The door is 36 wide, 3 foot wide. That's typical for an interior door, unless it's a small closet or a bathroom. Sometimes those doors are a little smaller. And again, if you're real technical, if your client's got specific dimensions, you're going to have to adhere to that. You're going to have to actually come in here and figure out, this is a 3-inch space. Then you'd want to put a box maybe in there that's 3 inches, just as a reference. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop over here to the perspective view, and we're going to compound object Boolean out these walls, these holes. But I don't want to keep doing the compound object Boolean for each one of these objects. So what I'm going to do is select the door. I'm going to go ahead, and you could select any of them actually, but I'm just going to pick the door. I'm going to go and do an edit mesh. And remember, edit mesh gives me the ability to attach multiple meshes together. So I'm going to take attach, and I'm going to attach each of these boxes, and I'm just clicking on them to select them. And now you'll notice that they're all one piece. That means when I use the compound object Boolean, I'm simply going to remove everything at once. Now, if you do that and then you go, oh, I need another window, you can still put that window in. Or you could even, if your client goes, you know what, I want to take those windows out, we'll be able to put almost like a little wallpaper or a little shield, a block over top of that to hide those holes. Or we can actually resize the holes with edit mesh once we're done. So there's a lot of freedom here. So now I'm going to select my walls, and I'm going to go up to the compound object Boolean, and I'm going to use to subtract a minus b. And if you remember, the way the Boolean works is the object you have is always the a, and the b is the operand, the next thing that you're going to choose to create the more complex object. So in order for this to know what b is, you have to select pick operand b, and just click on that object, and voila, it's removed all of the holes and the windows. You click on modify, and you're going to notice that we still have the object called walls, but we've lost the extrude option here. So now if you had to increase your ceiling for some reason, you can't go back to extrude, but you can apply an edit mesh to this, and that's going to give you the ability to grab vertices and segments, and we can move these vertices and segments to resize walls, windows, ceiling, and whatnot. Now just remember, when you resize something, that we have a thickness here. So if you just click one vertice and you move that vertice, you're actually screwing up the walls. If you want to move an entire window, you have to get the vertice here, the vertex here, and the one that's hidden back here. And if I go into wireframe, you'll see that there are these, and that's a common mistake that people have, is in one view they just click and they pull, and then they don't realize why the whole segment doesn't go. Worst case scenario here, oops, don't want to do that. Worst case scenario here is that we can go in and use the element, and that takes the whole wall, or you can choose the polygon and just move the entire wall, but you'll see that I'm adding thickness to the wall here as well. So there's a lot that we have to consider if you're going to edit mesh these walls. It's better to have everything set now before we get rolling. All right, let's do a save. We're going to do a file, save as. You can call this arc or architecture for the architectural visualization process. And now we have our walls built. Our next step is to put a floor in here. And the floor is going to be pretty simple. It's going to be very similar to that of the walls that we created. We are going to go to the shapes. We're going to take a line, and we're going to click and just draw a line inside the walls. And I'm holding the shift key here just to keep it straight, but if it's buried inside the walls, you're not going to see it. So as long as it's inside the wall. Now if you, and let me show you an example of how you don't want to do this. Let's say you drew inside the wall like this. What's going to happen, and let me just jump ahead, is we're going to extrude this to make a floor. And I'm going to go ahead and do the extrude. Now remember that when you choose a modify command, it inherits the previous extrusion amount, which is 8 feet. We don't want that. We want to go with, how about 2 inches? And floor thickness, floors are definitely thicker than 2 inches, but we're not going to see the depth of this floor, so it's not really going to matter. But now what you're looking at, if I go into my realistic view, you'll see here that because I drew inside the wall, I have this gap. And that's a common mistake that I see in architectural walkthroughs, is people have these gaps along the walls, and that is very distracting when you're walking through and you see big gaps and you see the sky or whatnot outside. So remember, if you do that, fix that problem by going in and actually checking to make sure that all of the vertices lie outside of the interior wall. And now when I go back and do an extrude, there we go, there's my floor. Let's go ahead and name that floor. And if you're doing 2 types of floor, let's say this was a big room that had 2 types of floor, you would just repeat the same process, but you would only, run the segments half the room. For instance, if you had carpet in this half and tile floor over here, you would do that. But for this tutorial, I'm going to just keep it simple and just do 1 room here. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to clone that floor. We're going to take the floor in the front view. We're going to hold shift, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull it up to the ceiling. We're going to make a copy, and we're going to call that ceiling. Now that kind of poses a problem right now. The ceiling we can't see inside our room to build our furniture. So the next step we're going to do is we're going to hide the ceiling, because when we're all done, we're going to learn about cameras. We're going to put a camera inside. We're going to move the camera around. We can put the ceiling back on. But for this modeling unit, we're just going to hide it for now so that we can see inside while working in the perspective view. All right, our next step is to start looking at the architectural features of a typical room. And you know, you may want to look around the room that you're sitting in right now, or you may want to search the web, and you'll be surprised at the amount of detail that goes into some of the nice architectural rooms. Now, what I've done here is I did an interior design Google, and this is kind of, again, almost every project that I start off with starts with Google. Google's my best friend. And what you'll find here is that, you know, you can go out and look at examples, and I don't suggest duplicating an entire project here. Of course, that's plagiarism. But looking at what some people have done here in the various rooms to kind of give you a feel of what theme you're going for. And most of these are kind of real contemporary, which is you know, probably what you might be interested in if you're going to build something that hasn't been built yet. But take a look at the various elements of some of these rooms. And what I mean by that is staircases, architectural trim. For instance, we'll open up some pictures here and we'll see. I'm going to try to find one with some nice architectural trim. Here, this specific picture is very busy. But look at the level of detail in here that we have the candles, we have the bookshelves, we have the books, we have the artwork, we have the couch with the blankets and the pillows and the rugs and the curtains and the fruit bowl. This is the level of detail that you need to achieve, not specifically this picture, but this is the level of detail you need to achieve to make your scene look real. Specifically, I want to look at this up here. This is called crown molding. And I'm going to show you how to do crown molding here in the next part of my video. You'll also see baseboard, and baseboard is very common. Most rooms have some kind of baseboard where the wall meets the floor. There's also something known as a chair rail, and I don't quite see any examples right now of somebody using a chair rail. But again, it's another piece of trim that goes along the wall, and I'll be showing you how to do this. Now you also have around the doors, and I'm trying to find a door here example as well, where around the doors you may have something called casing. And casing is a trim that pretty much goes, and here's an example of a bathroom that actually has the crown molding in it and whatnot. So here's a graphic that I'm going to use as kind of inspiration here, and obviously my room, I would have to go back and redesign it, so I'm going to just give this as an example. We're going to come back to this graphic a couple times. I'm actually going to show you, we're going to do some furniture here in a little bit, and I'll show you how to set up some of these. But you'll notice around the windows there's this window casing. You got the baseboard down here, as well as this window over here, and around the door there's door casing. This doesn't have crown molding, and that's fine. You don't have to use every type of trim here, but I'm going to do a demonstration on one of the trims. But again, the level of detail that you want in an architectural room, a fireplace. Later on you could check out my tutorial on how to make fire. You don't necessarily need a piano, but you might want a couch and a coffee table here and some of these architectural pieces. And we definitely want the windows and the lights and the floor and the carpet and the pieces in the shelves here. So again, this is I'll probably pull this up a couple times and show you, but we're going to go ahead now back into Max, and I'm going to show you one way to actually get some architectural trim going here. Okay, took a Google search of Windows casing, and you're going to see again the level of detail that goes into some of these projects. Have some really neat casing images here, and I'll grab for like this one here. It's just kind of a box frame that goes around, and that is probably the easiest one. Notice that these double hung windows here actually have the pane going across here, and you know, we'll start off by doing the window first. So let's go ahead back out, and we're going to pick one specific window to start off with. Because we cloned our windows, we can go ahead and kind of just build one window frame here. And I can do that by going out and maybe just starting with a box. And I'll go ahead and make like a box here that's going to represent that frame. In my top view, I'm going to move that box over to the actual window. I'm probably going to have to widen it a little bit because when I actually scale and take and rotate this next piece down and move it over to the side of the window here, I am in fact going to have to make it wider. And again, it's just kind of aligning it here with the exact window. I'm going to go ahead into my scale, and you know what, it might even be better just to go into Edit Mesh and grab the vertices and move them where you need them. So we'll pull them like this, kind of bring them down here, and maybe just duplicate that since now I've got it scaled the same size. Alright, so this is just like a block casing here that's going to allow me to keep it kind of simple. I'm going to show you another direction as well that might help you out. Some of the casing is kind of a perfect box where some of it sticks out just a little bit, maybe something like that, if you see how I'm doing that. Then of course I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that one down here, and I'm going to leave a little gap, and the reason why is that I'm going to create like a window seal, and I'm going to hold Shift and rotate this up on its side, and I'm going to place that kind of right inside there to create the illusion of a window seal. And this, I might take my scale tool and just kind of pull it in a little bit. Alright, so now when I go back out and I look at the window here, this is kind of what I've got. It's a basic window casing, and that'll look pretty good when I'm done here. Now I'm going to go in a while and kind of create my window. And the window, there's several different ways to do this as well. I am going to go and use a rectangle, and I'm going to overlap the casing just a little bit. I'm going to go in and I'm going to create half a window, and then I'm going to go and make a series of these little boxes, and I'm going to use the array command here. So we'll do we want 3 copies, and then because it's a little bigger, I'm going to select all of them, scale them down here so that they kind of fit in there. And if you had a picture of an actual sized window, you could pull that in and use that as a reference. Now I'm going to go ahead and Shift clone. I'm going to grab that. Still not quite fitting in there, so I'm going to go ahead and just adjust them. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to take this outside, this box on the outside, and I'm going to go ahead into Edit Spline, and I'm going to attach all of these pieces. And you'll see by doing that, that gives me one solid piece here that I could extrude into a window frame, and it'll already have the holes built into it. Now, one of the tricks I like to work with, instead of extruding, I like using bevel, because bevel is going to give me a little bit more control over the detail that I like to see in these types of projects. So I'm just going to give a little nudge there, and then I'm going to put a second level where I'm going to put a little nudge and a little negative, and just see how there's a little chamfer on the end there, and that's going to look a lot better when we work with lighting. I'm going to go ahead and Shift clone that down to create that double hung window look. I'm going to take that second one, I'm going to pull it in just a little bit so that there's that little overlap there. And you may have to do just a little bit more last minute scaling to kind of make the window fit in there. But we have a nice window frame that we can actually go and clone several times. Now, don't worry about glass at this point, because in a future lesson I'm going to show you how to simulate. We can put glass and force a picture behind it, or in my tutorial I'm going to show you how to use the photometric lighting to create the illusion of white light coming through the windows. Now we could just simply go ahead and clone these windows, maybe even edit mesh these together. All right, do the edit mesh attach, and then call that window frame, or window for that matter. And then we could also attach the frame around the window by choosing attach and selecting the various pieces that we used. And we'll call that window frame. Remember, this is important because we have to keep everything nice and organized with names. Now we can select these two and actually shift clone, and we can just drop them right in there. And we are in business. We have our first set of windows. Now I'm not going to do the whole house. I'll take a break and do that here between videos. But that gives you an idea of where we're going with the video, with the actual windows. Now, we talked a little bit about different types of casing. And if you, again, you go back out to Google and you do casing, you'll see that there's all these diagrams on how to do this. But here it says profiles. And this is kind of a tool I like to use. If you go out and you can search websites like this, where they actually give you the section view of a piece of trim. So for instance, if I save this as an image, I'll go ahead and put that on the desktop. And I want to pull that in the background to kind of draw it. I can use my background to go in and do a viewport background, and configure the viewport background. Under here it says use files. I'm going to go ahead and hit files and navigate to my desktop to pull in that picture of casing. And I'm going to go ahead and do a match bitmap and hit OK. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and actually take my line tool and draw this section view. Now I'll keep it simple. I'll do this one right here. And we're not actually worried about scale at this point. It's just kind of an idea of getting it started. But here I'm going to use my splines to kind of create the piece of trim here. And now that I've done that, now I can actually go out to Views, Viewport Background, and just choose my gradient background, kind of get back to that. And what I'm going to do with this piece is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to scale the heck out of it, get it nice and small, and actually move it by one of my door frames here. And you'll see where I'm going with this here in a moment. I'm going to go ahead and pull it up here, and I'm actually going to scale it this way, rotate it that way. And I'm going to find my door, which is kind of over here. And eventually you'll see where I'm going with this. I'm going to take it and I'm going to scale it down so that it's kind of right on the inside of the door frame. I'll put it on the base of the floor there. And now I'm going to swing around here and show you when I extrude what I get. There's a nice door casing here that allows me to, when I do a render, let's see if we can get in there, and I hit the render button, you'll see that this door frame has a nice casing on it. And you can use this for your windows, your doors, your baseboard. The technique is crazy here. You can just do about anything. So once you're done with one piece, it's just a matter of going in and cloning that piece out and placing it along the door frame like we did in the earlier section here. All right, maybe have to extend it a little bit more. There's my door. I can bring that down just a little bit. And you'll notice that they kind of overlap here and they kind of collide. And when you work with real architectural trim, what you do is you actually cut that or miter it, as they call it. One form of mitering here is to go out and create a line. I'm going to try to keep a nice straight line from one corner to the other and actually just draw this defined area around the piece. Extrude that piece, and it doesn't have to be too crazy, maybe 50 inches or even 5 inches will work. We'll do 10 inches. How about that? We're going to bring that over here. We're going to go ahead and, if you may anticipate what I'm doing here, I am pretty much going to subtract from this piece using the compound object Boolean method. A minus B, I'm going to take out this, and that miters that end. Now I'd repeat the process for the other piece, but once you have a corner mitered, you don't have to keep doing that for every corner. You could just duplicate this corner and use it all around the room. So this, even though this was quite a few steps, it's just another example of how to use compound object Boolean to kind of get that. Now you're probably saying, well, why can't I just edit mesh and move the vertices? That's a lot of work and it's very sloppy. This is a nice clean cut that's obviously going to look very professional when you're done. Okay, one last thing before we take our break and give you some time. Remember, we have baseboard. Baseboard runs the same way. You can search the web for a baseboard section view and take that baseboard and run it all the way around. And that's what I suggest you do at this point now, is save your project. Now that you have your walls built, go in and actually put window frames around your doors and your windows, baseboard, and even consider like the crown molding or the chair rail look for your work. In our next video, what we're going to do is start looking at how to create various types of furniture, such as shelves, couches, and tables, for the inside of your 3D architectural piece.